Tennessee playing well. And at some point, maybe this narrative that Tennessee's the bully on the block is gonna die down a little bit or change a little bit. I still don't grasp the whole concept of why that's the thing. I mean, John Shire at Duke never criticized Tennessee. The Duke players didn't criticize Tennessee, Rob, for their style of play. They called it physical, but they never called it dirty. Yet the national narrative out there is suddenly like like Tennessee did the game a disservice by the way they played on Saturday, which I find pretty baffling, to be honest with you.
Well, and Duke shot 7 foul shots. I mean, that to me is the biggest, red flag out there to poke a hole in that narrative.
Well, that and the fact, Rob, you and I talked about this on The Nation. I mean, they went to the monitor 3 times. And how many of them did they come back and say it was a flagrant foul? If it's not a flagrant foul, how can anybody call it dirty play? I mean, like, that's just the stupidest stuff I've ever seen. Like, I just don't understand the whole logic. Because, again, if it was dirty, wouldn't it have been a flagrant foul? I mean, and by the way, I've not watched a little bit. I watched Duke in the ACC tournament the last couple of games, and I watched them the 2 games in Orlando that they played. And I'd not heard John Shire talk. I grew a lot of respect for the way he handled that game after the game when they brought up the fact they were missing that key player. And he's like, well, Tennessee was missing Zakai Ziegler. Like, I mean, like, just the way he handled himself, the praise he gave Tennessee and all that. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm some Duke fan because I'm not, but I love the way he handled himself. I was a lot of respect for that guy.
John Shire was a coach back when he was the point guard for Duke in 2010, won a national championship. You knew back then if you watch him play college basketball, he was going to be a coach and listen to the way he spoke. But I mean, I was impressed with him as well. But kind of on that note, guys, Tennessee being the bully, if you will, Florida Atlantic coach after its win to advance on the Sweet 16 was asked about Tennessee and kind of getting ready for that. His name is Dusty May. He said, we're going to study Australian rugby rules and get ready for the Vols. And so that's kind of been played up here early in the week.
We're going to study Australian rugby rules and get ready for the Vols.
And Rob, I hadn't listened to it. I hadn't seen the video or anything. Maybe he was just poking fun, having fun or whatever. But I mean, again, this is a narrative that's not going to die down. And as Brent kind of put it on the board the other day, I think Tennessee should embrace it. Right? It's us against the world.
Yeah, and I don't want to make too much of it, but it is going to be a narrative around this game. I mean, from the talking heads perspective, I mean, you're going to hear about it. Tennessee's physical style, whenever they play. And I don't want to say Rick Barnes is super concerned with it, but now, the referees are going to hear that stuff and they're not, it's going to be something they pay attention to. I mean, not that they wouldn't pay attention to physical play at all, but that's going to be the talk around this game. I mean, thanks to Jay Billis and Seth Davis, and thanks to, Dusty May in his post-game comments, for after the Florida Atlantic went over Fairleigh Dickinson. So it's just, you just wonder if the referees are going to be more prone to have a quick whistle because it is going to be, a talking point this week.
Well, Dusty May is doing exactly what a good coach does.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
What did Phil Jackson do all those years? He thought, Mike just never gets the calls. Mike never gets the calls. Next game, every time Mike went in the lane, whistle blown, whistle blown, whistle blown. I mean, like, good coaches know how to work those things. Rick knows how to work officials. He's been doing it for years too. So I mean, it's good coaching.
I know what you're saying, and I agree with your point, but maybe there's a little bit of a difference between Dusty May and Phil Jackson with the '90s Bulls.
No, yes, but the logic of coaching,
I know.
How you coach.
What's going to be interesting to me about that New York bracket in Madison Square Garden, Rob, when you look at that game, is does Tennessee get an advantage playing the second game with the officials? Because listen, the king of physicality in postseason play is Tom Izzo, right? I mean, let's put on some shoulder pads and helmets and, put up some hockey boards and slam everybody into the side court and everything else. I mean, that's his whole career. Not that he's a bad basketball coach, but they have long been thought to be one of the most physical basketball teams in the country. So them playing first, are the officials cognizant of it from game one to game two? Does it change anything? Do they set a tone for how that thing is going to be played in game one in New York? I think that's probably diving too deep into it, but you do have 2 physical teams playing in New York against 2 teams who probably aren't considered the most physical teams when you're talking about Florida Atlantic and Kansas State. All right, so nobody liked that point.
I'm waiting on Rob to talk.
I thought you were going to jump in, EC. I'm sorry.
Well, you'll have two different sets of officials, but at the same time, like I agree that Hubs.
They're all going to share the same dressing room.
No, 100%. That's what I was going to say. They're all going to be in there together. So, they're going to be in there. They're going to be having conversations. So I do think it helps Tennessee that they're the second game, so they can kind of see how it's officiated from one game to the next. Even though they're not the same group, they're going to get the same message, going out onto the floor that night. So I do think Hubs brings up a great point. Having the second game at least gives you an idea. Doesn't mean it'll be the same. Probably should be, but it doesn't mean it will. But it does give you an idea of how it will be called.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the video here at Volquest on YouTube, the leading source of University of Tennessee football, basketball, and recruiting. Be sure to check out our latest video right here and our latest live show right above it. All that at Volquest.com and Volquest on YouTube.